Welcome back to another edition of the Talk Yours podcast. Once again, I'm Camden. This is Corby. And today we're going to be covering a variety of topics. And last time we took a little bit of time to get into what we needed to talk about. I think we're just going to dive right in today. So as many of you know, last week there was a confrontation between LeBron James and Stephen A. Smith courtside at a Lakers game. Blew up all over social media. Stephen A. came on First Take and talked about it. Said it had a lot to do with LeBron James being a father, and that was how he approached him, and that LeBron was talking a lot about Bronny and wanting Stephen A. to essentially lay off of Bronny. And then LeBron goes and talks to Richard Jefferson at the Celtics game this past Saturday, and Stephen A. said that kind of set him off, and he came on Gilbert Arenas' podcast, Gil's Arena, and verbatim opened up his statements by saying what he thought of LeBron's, choice to confront him in that way was it was weak, it was bullshit, but in the moment I knew I was listening to a father, and then went on to elaborate on that some more. I feel like some people have seen it, probably a lot of people have seen it. Maybe both of us should just kind of give our thoughts on what we listen to, and the thing and the whole thing in general.
Yeah, I think it's very easy to blame LeBron for this. LeBron looks like he's completely in the wrong, and I think he is. So I just want to go ahead and get the Stephen A. part out of the way. I think Stephen A., I didn't have that much of a problem throughout most of the process until he went to Gil's Arena. And while I heard him talk about it, while a lot of things made sense, and while I noticed that, yeah, Stephen A. never talked about Bronny in his upcoming in high school and college. I think he might have covered the cardiac arrest, but that's really it up until his professional career. But when LeBron confronted him and Stephen A. is talking about it, he at first said he talked as if like he was confused. Like when LeBron was getting mad at him, like he just didn't have any reaction because he was confused. And then 5 minutes later, Stephen A. talks about how, well, he would have said something, but because he's employed by Disney, he's not going to say anything. So which one is it? Were you just confused, or you just couldn't say anything? Because if I was him, I'm going off. I'm not going off on LeBron because all I'm using is my words. Like Stephen A. isn't gonna like approach like go toward LeBron in any kind of hostile manner. But you got to stand up for yourself. Like I'll be honest. I don't think he looked like much of a man there. And I know it was weak. And we can talk about how weak it was for LeBron. Gordon Hayward already spoke up about it, saying that like if he was LeBron, he would not have done that. That is not the right time and place. Mm-hmm. But still, Stephen A. like you, and then the fact that he said at first like, oh, I really didn't want to talk about it. But yet you go on Gil's Arena and you start talking about it. ESPN is not telling you to go on these secondary podcasts, not including your own, because that's already a secondary podcast, but Gil's Arena and talk. You clearly want to talk about it. You clearly do. Just don't lie to the media. I don't know. That's my thoughts on the Stephen A. part. What do you think? Yeah. Does he have any blame?
I thought that was weird, too. I thought that it's weird for him to come out and say, I work for Disney, so I can't be confrontational on a national scale, and then go on Gilbert Arenas' podcast, which may not be on a national scale, but lots of people still watch it, and make the comments that he made in as direct a way as he did, and saying, like, oh, I wanted to confront LeBron. I think Stephen A. and I don't claim to know him on any level, but I think anybody would feel a little bit emasculated in that situation, right? Like LeBron is coming up to you and confronting you in front of all of your friends or your boss. He said his boss was sitting there right next to him too. Yeah. Like imagine you're sitting next to your boss, and essentially like one of your biggest clients, because that's kind of what LeBron is to Stephen A. He's like a client, comes up to you and chews you out for the job that you're doing. Like, so I understand the reaction that Stephen A. had to come and defend himself on Gilbert Arenas' podcast, but I feel like if you were going to do something and you were going to say something, there was a time and a place to do that, and that already passed. I think him coming out and doing this now is just kind of, I don't know, almost, it's not rehashing a point that should have gone by, but it's like, why didn't you say this on First Take?
Wait, why do you think LeBron is a client of Stephen A. Smith's? I don't get that.
I just like an analogy, right? Because I mean, it's not like Stephen A. Smith is his agent or anything, but Stephen A. Smith relies on these players for a lot of his inside takes, a lot of his information.
Oh, so Stephen A. Smith is LeBron's client, is what you're saying?
No, I was saying LeBron is like in the sense that like in the job that Stephen A. does in journalism, he relies on his ins, right? Like he kind of needs to like keep certain high profile figures happy with what he says. LeBron is one of those, I would imagine, because if LeBron is unhappy with someone in the media, it gets out, right? People talk about it, like obviously.
But you think so? Because Skip Bayless, I mean, Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless have very similar jobs, and LeBron hasn't spoken out. Like I just that the whole client thing, like LeBron has no obligation toward Stephen A. Smith or Skip Bayless or any kind of reporter.
No,
so I think he can kind of just say.
And a client doesn't have any obligation towards the person they're hiring either. Like if you think about a lawyer, right? A lawyer is at the behest of their client. The client is not at the behest of their lawyer.
Oh, you
right?
mean in that specific? Okay, like a lawyer. Okay.
Like in that sort of way, right? And also Skip Bayless is kind of like known for who he is. Like, have you ever heard a current or former player talk about Skip Bayless in a positive light?
No.
There's honestly nothing to be said, and that's because that's the persona that Skip Bayless has crafted for himself. He is perhaps the most pure hater that I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel like LeBron has a reason to comment on that. Stephen A. Smith is a guy who will give LeBron his flowers, so I think LeBron listens to Stephen A. Smith more, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, from the Stephen A. Smith part of it, I don't think it reflects great on him. But I definitely don't think he was. If you've got to point to one person and be like, you were more in the wrong, I don't think it's Stephen A.
It's definitely not. It's definitely LeBron, and for literally so many reasons. One, I understand that LeBron's a father, but all Stephen A. Smith did was say things that were objectively true. He talked about the stat lines. He talked about how, I mean, let's face it, I'm rooting for Bronny James. However, I'm not a fan of what LeBron's doing. Anyone else in Bronny's shoes, is it being set up like this? You look at a guy, let's talk about last year's draft. Justin Edwards, who went to Kentucky, was a guy who was going into the draft. He was a top 5 guy. He plays not terrible. He's not like the worst guy ever, but he has a very subpar season. He goes undrafted. Undrafted. Now maybe he wanted to go undrafted. You never know with those kind of situations.
Yeah.
But let's just assume I can assume that he asked to not be undrafted because that's like such a rare scenario. Bronny James was a fringe top 15 guy going into this weak class, and then suffered this cardiac arrest, and then played like awful. Like he showed. Of course, he showed signs of being great, but he didn't even play until like late December, and just played awful. And in anyone else's situation, he's just he's just staying at USC for another year. Now he didn't do that, and he gets drafted higher than Justin Edwards, and it's all because of LeBron. And I don't know. You obviously don't want LeBron to admit that, like, because he had that tweet like a year ago or like 2 years ago. Maybe it was like 6 months before it was a couple months before the cardiac arrest, talking about, Bronny's better than half these guys in the league. You don't want LeBron to take that back because as a father, you have too much pride. And then obviously you want to believe in your son and all that. But Bronny's just been set up in this terrible situation. All Stephen A. did was call it out like once or twice, way less than anyone else. Now I understand Stephen A. Smith is the guy in sports media. He's getting paid the most by far. And you don't want to compare guys like him to guys like Gilbert Arenas or just any of these shows because Stephen A. Smith is the guy. But he did it so much less than everyone else. And LeBron didn't call out any other person.
Yeah. No, it was very intentional for LeBron to go and do what he did. I do just want to comment on Bronny real quick. I don't think people highlight his level of play and the contract he signed. Looking at the guys around him who signed a contract, it's a fairly standard late second round pick contract. There was quite a few guys who were drafted in the 40s, and I think maybe even close to the 50s in the second round that earned that same 4-year, $80 million deal. I know people highlight that a lot, so that was one thing I just wanted to say.
I mean, for sure, Bronny's good enough for NBA. I don't think he deserved that benefit of the doubt. Unless his last name was James.
I mean, the thing is, right now, he is When you compare him to the other guys around him who were drafted around him, who are currently playing in the G League and have played some games in the NBA, his stats in the NBA are comparable. His G League stats are better than theirs. He clearly has talent and ability. I don't think that needs to be brought into question necessarily, but certainly, like you said, any other player in his position is going back to college and playing another year at USC because no team is drafting any other player in that position, right? Like with the stats he put up, with the role he played on the team, and with his for better lack of a term, need to adjust more to basketball fitness after the cardiac arrest, which is not his fault by any means, but any injury is going to set you back in terms of your, basketball readiness. No other players getting that benefit of the doubt. You're absolutely right about that. But I do want to think or I do want to say LeBron, not LeBron. I guess he is technically LeBron, but he is Bronny.
Bron Jr.
Bron Jr. He is an NBA level talent. I mean, he may only ever get to the level of an Alex Caruso, but hey, that's a damn good NBA player. I'd be happy to have an Alex Caruso on my team.
Yeah, for sure.
And I mean, if he can develop his shot, he certainly has the build to be good on defense, the athleticism. I could see him being that type of player. So I don't want to paint a picture as if Bronny doesn't deserve to be in the NBA. The problem comes with the way LeBron talked about him and has talked about him for a long time. And Stephen A. brought this up. LeBron was saying when Bronny was in high school that Bronny was better than some NBA players then. And Bronny might be better than some NBA players. I don't know who you're pointing to, the guys at the end of the bench. But any guys getting legitimate minutes, Bronny is not better than those guys right now. Will he be in a year or 2 years after some development? Maybe. It's certainly a possibility. But when you already put someone like that on a pedestal, I think people forget how much shit Lonzo Ball got when he first came into the league because of how LeVar talked about him. This is not a LeBron exclusive issue. When you are a father or an agent or anybody who is promoting a young player, if you promote them beyond their skill and ability at that time, it will not reflect poorly on you. It'll reflect poorly on them. And you have to understand that when you're making those comments. And, the same thing happened with Lonzo. The same thing happened with LaMelo, too, when he first came in the league. You remember his, debut game? He had, 5 points on 0 for something shooting or 1 for something shooting and, 4 turnovers. And people were on his ass. People have been on that family's ass for a long time. And if you look at where they are now, people say, oh, LeVar's a successful father. LeVar, went 3 for 3. But I think people forget how difficult that made it for his sons at one point in time. And you have to understand and accept, both as father and son, that in that position, you have to be willing to accept that level of, not so much accountability, but more blame, I guess. People are going to hold you accountable for your words. And when you're LeBron James, you got to know that.
It's even worse for LeBron because LaMelo and Lonzo were like that, even with a target on their back, because people like Pat Bev outwardly said,
Yeah.
I want to kill that dude. I want to
Yeah.
make sure that he has the worst debut ever, because I believe they did play the Clippers. When Lonzo had his debut, it was against the Clippers with Pat Bev. I could be wrong about that. Pat Bev wanted to kill that man.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Bronny isn't even in this scenario where he can get a get back because he's not getting minutes. And just to correct you, I think any guy on the end of an NBA bench is still right now, and it's not a knock toward Bronny. Bronny was a second-round pick. Every single guy is better than Bronny. Now, you could say the guys who go in and out the G League.
That's what I'm talking. The 15th man on the roster is usually a guy who's floating between the G League and the NBA.
So 1 through 13. I think every 1 through 13.
No. I agree. Anyone who is getting somewhat consistent minutes is better than Bronny right now. Not a knock against Bronny. He's what, 19 still? Has he even turned 20 yet?
I don't think he's turned 20.
He's got a lot of time. I don't know.
So the dude's 20 years old. LeBron, I know that you're his father, but you can't. Well, actually, no. I'm pretty sure, according to the clip, because of the Richard Jefferson thing, I think LeBron was mad that Stephen A. attacked LeBron as a father versus I don't think he was saying Stephen A. Smith was trash talking Bronny that much. Because, all Stephen A. Smith did was tell the truth. The worst part is it's so hard to be great in your first couple years as a guard in the NBA that Bronny was never going to be this good. I'm just kind of sad because I think another year at USC actually not only helps his draft stock and helps, just everything about the situation, but I think he actually develops better.
I think it helps him. And that's something I wanted to get to, is this whole thing feels like it's about LeBron. Not about this young man who should, be finding his way, not just in the league, but in the world, right? Who has to figure out what he wants to do, how he wants to do it, how he wants to go about his work. And in the NBA scheme, right, where it's so competitive and it's a player eat player league, and if you don't take your shot, someone else is going to take it from you. He's trying to figure out, where is my niche? Where do I fit? LeBron is making this about him. And that's something I really have a problem with that. Because this whole thing has been about LeBron. This should be about Bronny. And that's the point that Stephen A is trying to make, is that when LeBron puts so much emphasis on his own kid, let's not forget, the reason Bronny went to the league this year is because LeBron wanted him to, and LeBron told teams, you should draft Bronny. You should take Bronny because I'm going to be incentivized to come play for you. And of course, eventually LA is the one that did end up drafting him.
Do you really think that happened?
I do. Yeah. LeBron.
No way.
I do. Because LeBron's contract, he has a player option at the end of this year. I think he takes it now. He said for so long that all he wanted to do was play with Bronny.
And that's why I think he told teams not to draft Bronny.
You think he told them not to draft Bronny?
I think that he told every team not to draft Bronny.
Except for the Lakers. So do you really think that, and fine, let's say he only told the Lakers to draft Bronny. Do you think the Lakers draft Bronny if LeBron doesn't tell them to this year? If LeBron goes, you know what? Hey, let him go play another year in college. I'll agree to my player option with you guys. Draft him next year. Do you think LA, based on talent, is like, we have to go get this guy now, or someone else is going to go get him?
See, can you kind of? I don't get your question. So are you saying if Bronny stays another year in college?
I'm saying, do you think Bronny gets drafted this year without LeBron saying, I want him to get drafted?
Yes,
to here
because they make so much money. That's the thing.
He's not playing though. That's the thing.
That doesn't matter. You know how many these jersey sales, these differences matter when you talk about the end of the second round. Most of the guys at the end of the second round, you could probably have gotten undrafted, and they don't really have that much value. Yes, you get Bron. I think other teams wanted Bronny too, just for the name. I'm talking about just the name, not the skill, anything.
I get it, and I would be curious to see where he is on the list. When was the last time you saw someone wearing a James Jr. jersey? Because I haven't seen it. I have not seen a number 9 James Jr. Lakers jersey.
I promise you people have it. I can't tell you a specific time I've seen it, but the jersey sale. I'm not saying they're top 10, but dude, you see how much people glaze LeBron. You don't think they'd buy his son's jersey the second that he signed with them? What do you look it up?
I guess I'm looking at the NBA's jersey
I mean,
sales.
it's not going to be top 10, but jerseys don't need to be top 10 just for them to
I know. I was trying to find a whole list.
I'm pretty sure. No, the nationally televised schedule comes out after the draft. I promise you get more of the just for the chance of Bronny playing. You get at least a couple more nationally televised games. And I don't know too much about the financials of the NBA, but I'm assuming that teams get paid more if their teams are broadcasted, or if their games are broadcasted by TNT, ESPN, etc.
I guess. But half the luster of buying a Bronny James jersey is that you can also get a LeBron James jersey for the exact same team. That's half. I mean, maybe not exactly half, but that's half of the appeal, right? If you're unless he goes to Cleveland, I don't know that the jersey has as much appeal as it does.
Wait, why not? So people already have a LeBron jersey. They don't.
No, I know, but it's
it's not like he's taking away. It's not like, oh, well, I might as well buy a LeBron jersey instead of a Bronny one. No.
I don't think
Cam, as much as negative as the media is about him, Bronny has so many fans rooting for him. It's insane. People
I know.
will stack the G League. No other team has a player in the G League that sells out.
No, I know.
like
And
Bronny
people should be rooting for Bronny.
And with fans comes jersey sales.
I guess. No, I guess that makes sense to a degree, but
Like no other second round pick is getting any jersey sales. I'm not saying that he's selling out the store.
But like, do you really?
We've seen so much worse for a little bit more for less money.
Yeah.
We've seen worse for less money. It is a business. We've seen how the NBA has changed directions just for a little bit of financial gain. And Bronny is a lot of financial gain, especially in the long run, especially because he's also an investment. And if he becomes good, oh, for sure. Every LeBron fan. Let's take our friends, Mateen and Joey. You think they're not copying a jersey if he's in the rotation?
Oh, they definitely are. Yeah.
For sure. It's a financial investment. And that's why like Bronny he can't help that, right? So I'm not mad at LeBron for having a kid and his son making the NBA and just him getting drafted in general. It's just the way that it occurred, the way that to me it was super obvious that he told other teams not to, and there was reports of it too. It wasn't any confirmed reports, but people said they're per sources and they don't actually list the source, but per sources, LeBron did tell other teams, or not LeBron, but also the Lakers GM, because you do not want to piss off the Lakers. The Lakers have all the power in the NBA.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the big reasons that the Luka trade didn't get vetoed, because it was going to happen to the Lakers.
Yeah. I don't know, dude. And speaking of the Luka trade, it's LeBron likes to maintain a level of like plausible deniability when it comes to anything that happens. Like he likes to be able to be like, "Oh, I didn't have anything to do with that." Like I'm glad the cards fell this way, but I didn't have anything to do with that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
It's the same as LeBron tweeting out right after Anthony Davis gets traded, "This is bullshit. I didn't know nothing about that." Like,
you know what though?
well, I call bullshit on. I'm sorry, I call bullshit on.
I kind of believe it. I kind of believe it.
No, I don't. You're telling me the lot. No. And here's the thing. The Mavericks proposed that trade 48 hours before it happened. You really think in those 48 hours, no one in the Lakers front office contacted LeBron James? You think Jeremy Lamb is making key decisions for the Sacramento Kings organization, but no one in the Lakers contacted LeBron James within those 48 hours?
I think it's too risky. You can't contact LeBron. You have to keep this top secret.
LeBron has wanted to play with Luka for just as long as Luka has wanted to play with LeBron.
But it doesn't matter that you tell LeBron. What if LeBron says no? You don't go against LeBron. You just don't tell him.
Then you just don't. What if you trade for Luka and LeBron chooses to not sign his player option next year? Like, that's the exact same risk. At least by checking with him, you have the option to like, okay, we either keep Anthony Davis and we ride out this core that we have, or we trade for Luka Doncic and we pair him next to LeBron James. The worst that happens is LeBron says no and signs his player option and plays another 2 years with the Los Angeles Lakers. If you trade for Luka Doncic without telling LeBron James, there's the potential possibility that you lose him after next year. And Luka's contract is expiring at the end of this year. Does Luka want to stay in LA if LeBron doesn't?
I don't know. I just know that as big as LeBron's ego is, and I say this to say there are so many more eyes on the Lakers now that this trade happened, and, and LeBron loves eyes. He loves I'll get to it in a second. But as much as that, I think LeBron, if he had to choose right now, because he only has 2 years left, if he'd rather play with Luka or AD, I think he'd rather play with AD. Just because ideally, it's just a better situation to win a championship.
I don't think
LeBron cares, because obviously financially, oh my goodness, the Lakers gained from.
And here's why. LeBron, and this is why I don't agree. LeBron has been looking for his protege for a very long time. First it was Kyrie, then it was Anthony Davis, now it's Luka Doncic. Luka is the perfect LeBron protege. I think LeBron, as much as he cares about winning, he already knows that he's LeBron James. He already knows that no matter what he does, like at this point, truly, what can LeBron James do aside from winning an MVP at 40 years old or 41 years old that is going to sway the minds of anybody that thinks LeBron James is the greatest player of all time or sway the minds of anybody that thinks Michael Jordan is the greatest player of all time. Because that's the only argument that matters anymore. That is the only argument relevant to LeBron, because it's him and Jordan and everybody else.
Well, not only nothing, but I don't think an MVP changes anything.
It might not even change anything. Jordan could have done that if he played another year. Like, there might be people that say that.
LeBron could win 2 MVPs. I'm not even kidding. 2 additional MVPs. It would not change the mind of a single person.
No, because people are set in their opinion at this point.
Yeah.
And so, what does LeBron James care about at this point? Legacy. LeBron James cares about his legacy. He wants his son in the NBA playing next to him. He wants to retire for the greatest organization in the NBA, or second greatest, whether you want to put them or the Celtics at number 1. And he wants a guy he can point to and say, I made him.
I don't think that. I've never heard him even say that, though.
I know you have, but if you listen to the way, like, if you just see the way, I don't know, and this is purely a subjective opinion, and it could be entirely wrong, but look at the way that his teammates treat him. They bow down to him, and he loves that. So why would he not love a guy on his team who has idolized him since he was a little kid, who he can mold into the kind of player, not change him, right? But like mold him. And then LeBron can go to Lakers games for the next 5, 6, 7 years, cheer on Luka, get his spotlight. They can point to him. He can dap up Luka in the locker room after they win the finals. Like you're telling me he doesn't want that? You just said he loves eyes. The easiest way to keep eyes on you for as long as possible is to make sure that the people who have eyes on them have connections to you.
I think you're reaching really hard. I don't think, because LeBron, no matter what, even with Anthony Davis, he's always going to have that. He's always going to have teammates that bow down to whatever.
Anthony
right?
Davis is 31 though. Like Anthony Davis,
but that's my
is
point.
technically
LeBron's
the
40.
future.
LeBron can't do too much. What you think? So you think LeBron is going to take credit for Luka's success just because they were teammates for 2 years?
I don't think LeBron will go out there and say, "Oh, I take credit for Luka's success," but he'll make some like vague Instagram post like hashtag just a kid from Slovenia. I don't know, like some shit like that.
Okay, I mean, I think that's a total reach, but you know what?
I don't know.
If you want to believe that, I don't even know how we got here, but yeah, pretty much LeBron was wrong for. I think LeBron has. We know LeBron either has or can get access to Stephen A. Smith's phone number. They could have done it privately. He wants attention, but LeBron has such a big ego, and it's so funny. Like, LeBron just made a TikTok account, and the very first video that he posted was him biting his jersey, and the caption was, "Who made this song?" And it's the LeBron, LeBron, LeBron song. But the funniest part isn't that. It's he's biting a jersey of his. He signed his own jersey. There's a signature on his jersey. What's the point of signing your own jersey? I don't.
and look, like, he's LeBron James. If anyone is going to have an ego and have it be earned, it's him.
If you don't glaze yourself, no one will glaze you.
No.
So I get it. No, I get it. But it's just a little weird.
And trust me, I've tried to glaze myself. I'm not flexible enough.
Let's go on to the next topic. The Minnesota Timberwolves, or we could talk about, let's just quickly glaze over the OKC Thunder. Since we last talked, they got completely blown out by Denver.
Yeah.
And then just last night, the OKC Thunder beat Boston. Relatively close game. What are your thoughts before I get into mine?
About that game last night?
Yeah. Is there too many thoughts about it?
No. I mean, at the end of the day, Boston took 63 threes and made 32% of them. If they make a higher percentage of their threes, they win. If they make a lower percent, we've kind of known this about Boston a little bit.
Yeah, we've seen Boston almost, like, I understand they swept the Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals last year, but we've seen them, like, every single game was a close game, and it's because they're so three-point centric that when it's off, it's off. And I mean, I'm just being honest, like, this year so far, Jason Tatum, at least as of a couple of days ago, was 34% from three. I think Jaylen Brown was 32. Drew Holiday's probably efficient, but we know Drew Holiday can how he can randomly get.
Yeah.
I know they call him Drew in the corner or something like that, but like
King of the corner.
But eventually we've seen him fall.
Oh yeah.
We've seen, I mean, Horford, Porzingis, they're not the greatest 3-point shooters ever.
No, and Horford was banging them last night. Like, you look at that 32%, and I mean that's a lot lower if you don't have Al Horford doing what he was doing last night.
Yeah, for sure. And then the OKC was just able to get to the line. The free throws were 35 to 10, I believe, and people are going to argue about it. People are going to argue about Shea's foul baiting or whatever. But when you take 62 threes in a game, you're not going to get to the line very much.
Listen, bro. OKC gets downhill. They go to the basket. When you go to the basket, you're going to get more fouls called. If you really think about it, what it was, 35 free throws? Yeah. That's not a crazy amount for a whole game. Like, it's a high amount.
It's pretty
But,
high.
like, how many free throws did Trae Young shoot yesterday?
21.
Yeah. So, like, let's not act like there's not worse happening in the league, right?
And a lot of it is, honestly, like, the biggest X factor for OKC, as important as, you know, obviously J-Dub is, Hartenstein, Chet Holmgren. Because we saw he was not great in the playoffs last year. No. And we know that, like, if his three-point shot is on, he can be the reason they win it all. Because we know, like, I'm sorry, Shea's game isn't something that's just going to randomly fall off in the playoffs. We haven't seen it happen yet, and I just don't believe so. He's that talented.
And he's also got that type of game that translates well to the playoffs.
Yeah. Chet is interesting because, you know, he just doesn't have much muscle on him. But even with that, normally, like how we saw last year in the regular season and this year, he could still he's mobile enough to maneuver around smaller defenders where he could just use his length. He doesn't have to back down Derek White. He just has to learn a way to curve around him, whether that's through like a spin move, whether that's Euro stepping, or just catching the ball within 3 feet. And then like his arms are so long that he could just tower over him. If he's consistently doing that and taking advantage of mismatches, which we didn't see much in his rookie season, that's when the problem starts. Because I believe the duo of Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein, they played, I believe, 152 minutes together this season, and their offensive rating is 128.
Damn.
Which is pretty crazy for, you know, 152 minutes is a decent sample size. It's not a great sample size, but
yeah, that's pretty crazy.
That's that lineup, what, 10 minutes a game for 15 games?
Yeah.
Because they've both been hurt throughout the season.
Yeah.
It's a decent sample size, and they've been obviously killing it with their record and all. So, in my opinion, we're not doing an X Factor video, but he is the X Factor to OKC being great.
Yeah. One thing I really liked about OKC last night is the way they attacked the Celtics, because the Celtics have certainly taken on the personality of their coach, and love that man. Absolute psychopath. I think he said something about they want to run a killer whale offense, which is basically they're hunting for the seal on defense.
Okay. That makes sense.
If you know anything about killer whales, those motherfuckers are crazy.
Yeah.
Like, dude, they're actually psychotic. They will slap seals 25 feet up into the air. Like, they'll literally bite their tails off so they can't swim, and then slap them like 25 feet up into the air. That's and insane. Let them just hit the water, and then they'll like practice hunting with them, like just basically like fuck around with them while they're bleeding.
Use them as a soccer ball.
Yeah, no, dude, they're insane. But to that point, that's exactly what Oklahoma City did last night. You could tell they were hunting specific guys on offense, which is kind of crazy to do against the Celtics because the Celtics are known as a really good perimeter team when it comes to defense. They're known as a team that can really like switch anybody between Derek White and Drew Holiday and them. Like they really don't have a ton of holes in their like perimeter defense. No. And usually you see guys try to hunt switches onto Horford or maybe even Porzingis. They weren't doing that at all. Like they were hunting switches onto specific guards, and they were basically sending the message like, we're going to take the best aspect of your defense without our second best perimeter scorer, and we're going to attack that and we're going to win. Like that was the biggest thing for me, is it definitely sent a message like OKC on its best day is better than Boston on its best day.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this season, I still think in general, if you talk about both on their best day, Boston is making 60, 62, 63% of those three-pointers. Because they were collapsing pretty heavy on Tatum, which is something I don't know. Personally, if I'm an NBA team, and I'm not a coach, but I would make Tatum beat me versus make Tatum like Tatum has developed his playmaking so well he can make the right pass and he consistently does do it. And I would just personally rather Tatum beat me one-on-one.
But
especially if you have the defenders OKC has.
No,
if you're a team like an underdog like likely right now the Hawks would match up against the Celtics.
Yeah.
I'd be fine making them beat me from 3 because I know that none of my defenders can hold him one-on-one. But OKC is a different story, and it's just a one regular season. Maybe they were just testing something out. But I even though OKC won and they were physical, I still kind of liked what Boston did a little more than what OKC did. But I still want to give props, obviously, for the win and Chet going off. And
oh, absolutely. Yeah. The other game of note last night between the other MVP frontrunner and the Minnesota Timberwolves, where by the end of the game, the Nuggets got kind of smacked in the mouth. It was not like that through the whole game. You know, modern NBA, any game can become a 20-point game pretty quickly. But yeah, Minnesota looks damn good right now. Like, as a Warriors fan, I don't think we're getting that 6th seed. I really don't. I think Minnesota's getting it for sure.
I think so too. Minnesota in games with Randall are 11-0 in their last 11 games. And that is not some sort of weird coincidence. Randall actually in an interview talked about his change of perspective, talking about how like he just kind of looked at basketball from a different lens when he was injured. Yeah. And he realized just how much better he would be if he just played a little less selfishly, because he said he's been scoring for so long that he doesn't need to, like, he has nothing to prove scoring wise. He doesn't need to go out and do a bunch of moves that take 7-8 dribbles. He could just play within the offense. And that's exactly what he's been doing. And I think just in general, Julius Randle is one of the most, I'm not even going to say pulverizing, because it's like 90% hate. People do not like Julius Randle. Even personally, my dad just doesn't, it's not that he hates Julius Randle or anything, but he doesn't see any of the hype. Mm-hmm. I see a dude who at his peak, and I'm going to ignore all of the jump shooting. Just the fact that he has a pull-up jumper is amazing, but he is stronger than 90% of NBA players out there and a lot of centers. He is faster than like most big men on the court. Yeah. And just that combination, when you take just that combination alone, he's up there with Zion and LeBron in terms of athleticism. Like, I seriously, and it's so interesting because it was Karl Anthony Towns who was matched up on Jokic in the playoffs last year, while Gobert was guarding Aaron Gordon, and he kind of just stepped away.
He was just kind of floating.
But if the Minnesota Timberwolves match up against Denver this year, it's going to be different because Aaron Gordon's three-point jumper has been amazing. Mm-hmm. But if they want to continue that scheme, Julius Randle, there was one, I didn't watch the entirety of the game, so I don't want to talk about specifically that game, but just the Wolves in general. Jokic was posting up Randle, probably about like 13, 14 feet away. Jokic wasn't moving. Mm-mm. Randle stood his ground, and Jokic couldn't do a thing. And it's because Jokic is stronger, but it's not by much. Randle is a strong guy. And then, so he got the stop on Jokic. I'm pretty sure he got the rebound, and then just kept the ball. He didn't give it up to the point guard. Went on the break, and then just posted up. I'm pretty sure it was like Michael Porter Jr. or just whatever guard was in front of him. Mm-hmm. Just the versatility of that alone just shows his value. And it's going to be really interesting with not only what happens in the playoffs, but what happens in free agency with his contract. Because I'm pretty sure he has a $30 million player option.
I believe he does, yeah.
If he continues what he's doing right now, there is no way that he accepts that player option. And not because he'll get more money, but he will definitely get a long-term contract with similar money if he keeps doing it.
But I would love to see him accept it because I would love to see him stay on the Timberwolves.
I think he can decline it and stay with the team.
Oh, yeah.
He would just want a better contract.
The problem is Naz Reid is also a free agent, and he also has a player option that he will certainly decline. So you're almost hoping as the Timberwolves that he'll take that player option, and then you can sign Naz Reid.
But I mean, you have bird rights on both. You just have
to
probably
have bird
go
rights
into the,
on Julius Randle?
I don't know why they wouldn't. I'm pretty sure if you play a whole year with the team.
Okay.
I don't know what makes the bird rights happen personally, and I don't think I could even look that up to see if they would have it. Like, that's just something in the spur of the moment we get information on.
No, that certainly is possible.
But it's so crazy, like the dynamic of my opinion of the Wolves in the first 40 games versus the last like 25 so far.
Totally different.
This is a whole new team. Anthony Edwards. Oh my goodness. Anthony Edwards threw an alley-oop. I'm not even kidding. Like, seriously, you talk about the first 4 years of his career, Ant could not throw a single lob. He didn't throw a single lob to Gobert. I'm pretty sure in the whole first season they were together. Mm-hmm. I can attest. I did see it. If my kids asked, like, did you ever see an Anthony Edwards alley-oop? I said yes. Like, I saw that last night, and I got so happy. I'm like, wow. Because seriously, even though Ant is like a decent passer, He's not, and his IQ isn't there. And he literally admitted, I'm pretty sure it was right before one of the All-Star games. He's like, I'm sorry, I know it's an All-Star game. I can't throw alley-oops. Like, he said that. He admitted it.
Yeah.
And then after the game, you go to the interviews, and Ant was talking about how he's been watching film on Luka. Are you kidding me? The guy who said he doesn't like watching basketball when he was being drafted. He's like, I like football a lot more. I don't even like watching basketball. In fact, he might have even said that a year after he was drafted. And now he's watching Luka film to see how he beats the double teams.
Mm-hmm.
He's not Devin Booker. He's not running from the double teams. And I know Devin Booker has grown from that, but just the fact that he even said that, like, just, oh my God. I'm so happy that Ant's progressing as a player. Like,
listen, I'm a Warriors fan. I want them to get the best position they can to succeed in the playoffs. I would not be mad at the Timberwolves getting the 3 seed and having their best position to succeed, because I really like that team. Rudy Gobert is the only guy I'm kind of like whatever about. But Dante, Nas, Ant, Julius.
Jaden McDaniels has been amazing.
I like Mike Conley. Who doesn't like Mike Conley? Like, you may not feel too strongly about him, but it's Mike Conley.
He's just a solid guy.
Yeah.
You know?
But no, I've been a fan of Julius Randle for a good bit. And with a massive grain of salt, maybe that's because I've been told I play like him by certain people. Keep in mind, this is against not NBA players. I do happen to not be able to move NBA-sized people.
Who said you were Julius Randle?
Mateen said that. Bjorn said that. You said that at one point. You definitely said like a year ago, you guys said I played like Julius. That was the unanimous decision, actually. Is that was my player archetype. It was Julius Randle.
I must have said that. No, it was not a year and a half, because I must have said that during a good year, or when he was playing good. Because I would never see your shot and then Randall's normal 3-point shot and say that you play, because you have well, obviously he's an NBA player, right? But just comparison wise, you have a way better 3-point shot than Randall. Like, yeah,
This should mean something to me, Corbin.
Look, continue on.
But yeah, no. So Julius Randle is a guy who I've always liked, but of course had that opinion of like, he presses too hard. He's a guy who has the mentality of a number one option and plays like it, and has the skill level of a really good number 2 and a championship level number 3. Like, and if I was always, I think I wrote something about it when the trade happened, and that was always my opinion. Like, if he could just relinquish a little bit, and he gets on a team with a guy like Ant, who is Ant is number 1. There is no questioning that on that team, especially after they traded Cat. Like, that was the message, right?
Right.
If he could just slow it down a little bit, because he's got so much talent, he just plays outside of himself sometimes, because he gets going so fast and he tries to do something that's just a little bit outside of his like ability in that moment, and that's where he loses all control. And people are like, oh, he sucks. He turns the ball over. He's like, if he just played a little bit below that, he could be great. And that's what we're seeing over these last 11 games with him, because Julius Randle is in many ways, he's like a perfect basketball player. He's exactly what you would want. Like you said, athletic, strong, tall, can shoot, can step out, can defend. He can defend his ass off. He might be a better defender than he is an offensive player. He can pass, he can rebound. He can do everything, and he can do it at a far above average level. He's just not quite that number 1 offensive option, but I think you're seeing it right now. And New Orleans ruined him, by the way. Like, they put all that ball handling pressure on him, and it made him a better player, but it also, like, shifted him into this mentality of, I have literally no one else on my team. I have to do everything, right? And then he goes to New York. That's how it was for, like, that first year, kind of. And then, Brunson comes into his own, and then it's like, okay, this is Brunson's team now. I think this is a perfect situation for him, and I really hope he stays in Minnesota. I'm so glad that Dante's healthy too, because he's another dog. Like, I love Dante DiVincenzo. Ever since he had that year even before that when he was with the Bucks, but ever since he had that year with the Warriors, I have loved Dante DiVincenzo. Looks exactly like Luke, by the way.
Of course.
Like completely. They might be identical twins. They might be. Love him, and even Gobert. In this situation, I think, is being allowed to operate in the way that works best for him, right? He doesn't have to step out and guard anybody, in theory, with the team that they have built around him.
Oh yeah, they've got some nasty defenders. It makes his job a lot easier.
And I know Anthony Edwards isn't having the statistical season to like a Shea or a Jokic or even a Tatum. Since the last like 2 months, he's on one.
He's
like
up there.
I don't know what his scoring numbers are compared to everybody else, but he's got to be like top 3 in scoring in the last 2 months. I know he's probably like 4th or 5th overall.
And he's
like,
still, I mean, and maybe he's taking a little bit less, but he's still taking those same threes that he was taking at the beginning of the season.
Oh yeah, I don't know why he would stop taking them. He shoots 43% on those threes that he's taking too.
Anthony Edwards' discourse was crazy in the first 2 months because he was still hitting. He was like 45% from three through like the first 15 games, and people were saying, "Why is he shooting so much? He's too athletic to be shooting that much," even though it was working. And just to like, you can't just assume, oh, it's gonna fall off eventually. Like you say that, you have to say that once it actually does.
Yeah.
Because if my favorite player is shooting 45% from three, and I hear other fans from other teams saying he shouldn't be doing that, he needs to stop because it won't maintain, I'm mad. I'm like, no, keep doing that. That's winning us games. That was the only thing, because Randall wasn't great in those first couple months. McDaniels wasn't great. The only other person who was consistent was Naz Reid. That was the only thing keeping them even 500, or even just like whatever they were, a little bit less. And then now that everyone else is coming together, and they're now like probably like 6-7 games above 500, and they're still like, the fact that they have to fight, dude, in the East, they're probably like a 4 seed right now, huh?
Oh yeah,
like that's,
I think,
or maybe like tied, like in there.
They're better than Milwaukee. Right
How good they are. No, they are a better team.
Like they would be, by the end of the season, they would definitely be the 4th seed. I don't know that they would quite climb up above the Knicks record wise.
No.
Speaking of which, just to hit on that trade a little bit, because there was a ton of discourse about it and how horrible it was at the beginning of the year. I honestly think both teams got better. And I think it's kind of weird to say that, but I think New York got a guy who fits their needs better. And Julius Randle got a situation in Minnesota that allows him to do what he needs to do to be the most effective player he can be.
I don't agree, because technically, if you just look at the trade, yes, but them getting Karl-Anthony Towns made them let go of Isaiah Hartenstein, and Hartenstein is like the ideal center next to Jalen Brunson.
That's a good point. And to even throw this out there too, they lost Dante DiVincenzo in the trade. So in reality, they gave up Hartenstein, Randall, and DiVincenzo for Towns. I don't think it's a huge loss because of what Towns can provide offensively, but it certainly hurts the overall cohesiveness of the team.
And I believe, which side got picks back? I think it was the Wolves. I think
it was the Wolves. Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not gonna count them out, but personally, if you had to ask me, like, the contenders of the East, I don't know if I'm even including the Knicks. So the fact that that's even the case, it's just kind of proof that I don't believe that they won the trade at all. Especially if Randall's playing like this. That's the thing. Like, Randall might get bored one day and just randomly start chucking again. So you never really know.
I don't think he will. I just genuinely.
But also, by the way, me saying this, it's not that I don't want Randall ever taking tough shots, because sometimes that will just help the offense by, teams will focus on you more and it'll get you more open looks. But just, he would do it a lot. He would take a lot of bad shots.
The problem was, he would do that every game.
If you have 5 seconds on the shot clock, go ahead and try something, but don't try it early in the shot clock.
That was what I noticed at the beginning of the season too, is he would initiate possessions, right? With, frankly, that bullshit. Like
step backs and stuff.
Step backs, trying like hezzy tweens and like all kinds of crazy shit. Like, dude, you're 6'10", you're strong as shit. You can keep it simpler than that. You can be dominant in a simpler way. But no, 5 seconds on the shot clock. If Ant can't have the ball in his hands, Julius Randle is my second guy that I want taking a tough shot.
For sure.
On that team. And like, just thinking about it, what is the coverage for him?
It's actually just hoping he misses.
Yeah. Like
from like jump shots at least.
I'm sorry. That's the same case for him and Ant. him and Ant can get the shots they want whenever they want to. That's like, and I don't think like I know people realize this. That team is strong as shit, like physically. Like that team is built.
Yeah.
Like if you think about a 7-game series against that team, you're gonna be worn out by Game 5, Game 6, because they come at you and they keep coming at you.
Yeah. Especially if you're going against a big man like like Jokic. Like they still might be the worst matchup for Denver. They still might be, even without Towns, who Towns did a great job on Jokic.
I think OKC is still the worst matchup for Denver this year, and I think Denver is kind of the worst matchup for OKC in a lot of ways too.
Really?
I just think they really like. I mean, you saw what happened in their 2 individual games.
Like, I understand. Jokic was just missing. Like Jokic got whatever he wanted in both games. The problem is he just missed a lot of threes in that first game.
I understand. Like Jokic can get a lot of what he wants,
but I mean,
we've also seen a lot of series where Jokic goes off, and if the others get shut down, there's only so much he can do. He can't score 60 points, right?
Right.
Like at the end of the day, his game is predicated on being able to get others involved. And like you saw how the Lakers played him, I don't think that works in a 7-game series. I think Denver figures out a way to like adjust to that.
Yeah.
Like less, maybe even like quicker passes out of the post from Jokic, like as soon as they start to make that rotation over to him. But OKC has the ability to shut down everybody else on that team. Like matchup wise, I don't know who, because that's the thing. In the playoffs, it's really like the best player is going to determine a good amount of the series, but the second best player is usually going to be the difference in the series. Like every single team that usually wins a close series is going to have that one guy that goes off 1 or 2 games and wins them those games and really makes a difference in the series. I know Jamal Murray is Jamal Murray, right?
He steps up.
I just think that OKC has the personnel to guard him.
But I don't think it's about guarding Jamal Murray. Like, yeah, Jamal Murray's going to have his minutes without Jokic. Mm-hmm. But those OKC defenders, if there's one thing they can't defend as well as every other kind of offense, it is pick and roll. And Jamal Murray doesn't, like, Jokic's screens are so, I mean, that's a large man. They're so good that, like, if Jamal Murray could just get the shot off, which Jokic will help him do, like, every possession that Jokic is on the court, somehow he has the stamina where every possession is through him.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's a single person, and there's no single person in the entire NBA that can guard Jokic. But especially, just from what I saw in those 2 games, especially OKC doesn't have anyone. I just think Hartenstein, I think both Hartenstein's like just, Chet's too weak, right? Yeah. Obviously. But they both tend to foul a lot in post-ups. And that's what I noticed in that matchup. And that maybe it was just those 2 games.
I'm going to say something.
What?
And you might hate me for it.
Okay.
I think you run Dort at him.
At Jokic.
I think you do. I think you run Dort at him in the post. You have Chet play help side. If you have Chet help off of Aaron Gordon, and that's at the end of the day, Aaron Gordon's either going to knock down a shot or he's not. You're going to live with that.
So you don't think they run double big? Because if you can't run double big then
no, you can't.
Yeah, because then whoever's on the perimeter is going to kill Hartenstein or Chet on the perimeter.
I think you can spell Hartenstein and have him guard Jokic at times off the bench. But I think having him start on Jokic from the beginning of the game is, like you said, it's going to put him in foul trouble. And I feel like it's also going to reduce his effectiveness on offense, getting offensive rebounds, going towards the basket. And he's pretty valuable doing that for the Thunder.
Yeah.
Dort is a guy whose offense you can sacrifice in a playoff series. And I think you've seen in the past guys like Draymond Green have had success against Jokic because and Randall too. I know Dort's smaller than those guys.
For sure.
But like that sort of build where you can get on Jokic's lower body and have a lower center of gravity and really throw him off his balance And that's one thing you can do against Jokic is he does have a tendency sometimes to expose the ball on post-ups. And Dort's a guy with really quick hands. You saw Draymond Green was able to do that effectively in series that Golden State played against him. I think there's no ideal matchup, but if you're really trying to like get creative, I think maybe Lou Dort could be a guy who you could put on Jokic and throw him off of his balance and his rhythm. And just that's all you need. You just need to create hesitation, a couple turnovers, and it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, but as strong as Dort is, Randall is just the harder matchup for Jokic. I mean, Randall, like, I seriously think Jokic will not be able to move nearly as much as if Dort's guarding him. And obviously, Dort's smaller. If you just put him in the low post, Jokic is scoring on him very easily. Not very easily, but way easier than Julius Randle.
No, and that's definitely true. I guess the one thing I will point to, as much as I did just sing his praises a little bit, is with Minnesota, Mike Conley is definitely more of a liability than anyone you're going to have on OKC for the most part.
Yeah.
Just like, and who do you put him on? You don't put him on Russ, and that's if they're starting Russ, right?
Right.
You probably don't put him on Jamal Murray. You probably don't put him on MPJ. Do you put him on Christian Brown and just try to rely on defensive rotations if he drives?
Wait, remind me, sorry, who are we talking about? I'm talking
Mike
about
Conley.
Oh, Mike Conley.
Like that's that's my concern about Minnesota's defense when it comes to defending Denver.
Then I think you put him on Mike. Or sorry, I think you put him on Christian Brown. Because if Christian Brown does move a decent amount in that offense. If Christian Brown drops 20 on you from cuts, I think that's just what's going to have to happen versus an MPJ 3 versus just.
I know you say that, but he's averaging like what 14, 15 this year.
Yeah, and it's high field goal percentage.
Him dropping 20 is not unheard of. And it's tough because that's where it's like Rudy Gobert has to sag off of Aaron Gordon in that offense.
Yeah.
And you probably put Julius Randle on Jokic. That's probably the best way to, and maybe you put Gobert on Jokic. I think it makes more sense to have Randle on Jokic because of the size. But depending on foul trouble, maybe you mix it up. Maybe they don't start Mike Conley. Maybe they start DiVincenzo instead.
I think he's a guy who I think it's similar to Dort, and I've kind of said this for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Conley might be a guy who starts and then plays like 20 to 22 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I think DiVincenzo and Naz Reid both should get more minutes than him. I think it'll be interesting with, like, obviously Rob Dillingham has been inconsistent as a rookie should, but he's been pretty good. Someone who I've been a really big fan of on the end of the Timberwolves bench is Terrence Shannon Jr., who he dropped, I believe it was either to the late first round or early second.
I loved Terrence Shannon Jr.
Dude, the fact that he dropped, it was just because of that stupid accusation that wasn't true.
What was the accusation again? I didn't hear about that.
I believe it was like a sexual, I don't know.
And it ended up getting like...
It ended up being like pretty serious, but it's all like cleared now. I believe they were actually like, it wasn't like they paid him off. Like, he was actually found not guilty.
Okay.
So obviously I'm super happy for him. Who else do they have off the bench again?
It's Terrence Shannon Jr.
Nickeil Alexander-Walker, obviously great defender.
Yeah.
What I've kind of noticed is his confidence from the 3-point line has been low, which might be better because I believe in that Maverick series he was not great from three. Which, I mean, part of me is like, he's been a decent 3-point shooter throughout his whole career, but also it's not really that high. So you know what? He's been good at driving to the basket. It'll be interesting because I don't see a rookie playing though in their playoff rotation. At least if everyone's healthy.
No, God, this is just making me realize how much of a bloodbath the West is. Like, I'm thinking about the matchups in the first round, and I'm like, okay, Minnesota at 6 is going to be playing either Denver, LA, or Memphis. And that's
who do you want?
If I'm Minnesota,
who do you want?
See, I feel like a lot of people are going to say Memphis because they don't have the star power of the Lakers and they don't have the star power of Jokic on the Nuggets. I'm taking the Nuggets personally. If I'm Minnesota in the first round,
No shot.
yeah,
No.
I'm taking Denver.
You don't want to play Nikola Jokic in the playoffs.
I don't want to play Luka Doncic and LeBron James in the first round.
But you can take advantage. Like, they're such a smaller team. I understand it's been working so far. I was really going to say Memphis, honestly. I feel like the matchup-wise, like, not only should they... Remember, 2 years ago when Minnesota wasn't as good of a team,
Yeah.
Minnesota, if Ant wasn't so young and stupid, the Wolves would have beat the Grizzlies.
Young and stupid.
That's what he was. That's a dude who couldn't pass out of a double team. That's a dude who couldn't throw an alley-oop. I feel like Ant has developed in this last year to the point where... And honestly, like any size or any team but the Nuggets, the Wolves have size on. And I think you need to use that size to your advantage.
Listen,
You don't want to play Jokic.
you got to go through Denver at some point, probably.
But maybe you don't.
What, based on the standings, I don't
What
think
if the
Denver...
Warriors play the Nuggets and the Warriors beat the Nuggets?
Corby, I'm a Warriors fan. If you're trusting Quentin Post to guard Nikola Jokic...
Like you were
I
saying, you
don't
trust
think-
Draymond.
Yeah, you trust Draymond, but Quentin Post as a help side defender is not nearly what any of the other guys we talked about.
The Warriors
is.
have 15 role players who like are decent. Like you could find someone else then.
Who? Actually, name me who.
You have
Trace Jackson Davis, who has gotten no minutes for like the last, since... I don't think he's gotten any minutes in 2025.
He has. I promise you he has.
You think?
I swear I looked at a box score and he did. And I was shocked, actually.
A singular box score.
Well, I'm not checking the box
And
score
you were
every time.
shocked.
I try not to be a box score watcher.
No, I know.
So they have Kevon Looney. They have guys.
I love Kevon Looney, but...
They have Jimmy Butler. What I'm saying
You're
is...
going to put Jimmy Butler... Wait, are you saying on Jokic?
No, but what I'm
Okay,
saying
you're
is you
just
can
saying, like-
roll him off Aaron Gordon with Jimmy Butler.
Yeah,
It's not a crazy...
you could. Look, yeah, Memphis is the right
Don't just say that they...
Memphis is the right answer. I mean, yeah.
I'm-
I feel like Minnesota...
But also Minnesota... Oh, actually, I don't know. They can't guard Luka. They already lost to Luka. Okay, yeah, you can't
No,
say
you
the
can't.
Lakers.
You can't take
You
the
can't.
Lakers.
So it has to be Memphis
I'm
because...
not voluntarily playing Luka Doncic in a playoff series if it's my choice.
But
I
you were
would-
so quick for Jokic. That's crazy.
Look, there's just like they already beat Jokic,
But it's the same...
but they didn't beat Luka.
But it's this Luka can't get past his defender. And his great games that he's had
This
so
Luka.
far...
What does that mean? This Luka.
Big Luka.
Big Luka.
Yes.
You don't think he could lose weight before the playoffs and get quicker?
He could. Are you relying on Luka to lose weight? Is
Listen,
that the bet that you want to take?
If I already beat somebody last year and lost to somebody else, I'm not voluntarily playing the guy I lost to.
But
On a
Nuggets are
better,
just-
on probably a, well, I don't know if they're a better team overall, the Lakers.
no.
than
Then
the
the Mavericks? No.
No.
They've had this hot streak. That's cool. I don't
But
believe it.
like,
The sample size isn't big enough for me to say that they're
I'm
better
sorry,
than the Mavericks.
it's LeBron and Luka are getting one playoff series just off of being LeBron and Luka. Other than that, the Lakers might get second rounded, but I just don't see LeBron and Luka losing in the first round.
I can see it. Are
I
you kidding
don't.
me? You want to be this weird pessimistic Warriors fan? That's fine. But the Warriors have a chance. The Wolves
No, they
have
do.
a chance.
They do have a chance.
The Rockets have a chance.
I want the Warriors to play the Grizzlies or the Rockets in the first round. That would be my ideal scenario, and then I want them to play OKC in round 2. That would be my ideal scenario for them getting to where they need to go, because then maybe they play a team like Minnesota in the conference finals if they can get past OKC. I don't want to see them playing OKC at the end of the playoffs with their roster and how old it is.
Yeah, that's true. You want players who are a little bit who are more they would tend to be worn down.
Yeah.
By the
Look,
end.
I could talk about the Warriors all day, but like,
Yeah, we can make. Eventually, something will happen with the Warriors where we'll have a long discussion.
the
about
thing
them.
is, they're just consistently doing the same thing. They're just winning.
Yeah.
You know, it's like there's not much to talk about because as much as I do really love their new look, they're not as dominant right now as people think they are.
I want to ask you because you're probably watching most Warriors games.
Uh-huh.
Steph Curry has been on a heater.
Yeah.
Do you think that this is just like a Jimmy Butler joined the team? For some reason I'm just in a different mental, or do you think Jimmy Butler's game actually has helped Stephen Curry?
I think Jimmy Butler's game has helped him a lot because I think part of the problem with the Warriors is normally Draymond Green would be a guy who can bring the ball up for your offense and operate as the primary playmaker. In recent years, it has not felt like he has the confidence to be able to do that. And so more often than not, you see Steph or you see Brandon Pajemski bringing the ball up. Maybe Buddy Hield from time to time. And that, like, I saw something like Steph is taking more shots, but he's taking fewer shots that are contested now, which is certainly a product of Jimmy Butler being there. Because when you have a guy who can bring the ball up the court and Steph is allowed to exclusively work off ball from the beginning of the possession, it's way easier for him to get open. When he has the defense's eyes from the start of the possession, yes, he can get open, but it's harder for him because he's passing off at the top of the key to try to run off a screen, or he's taking a screen at the top of the key and he's getting double teamed, and then he's passing to the roller. And as much as like I like Quentin Post and I like Gui Santos and I like Trace Jackson Davis, none of those three guys are exceptional playmakers at the center position. And Gui isn't even really a true center. He's more of a power forward.
Yeah, I never even saw him as a center.
Yeah, but he sometimes there have been times where he's played center on the court for them. But those guys aren't exceptional playmakers from the center position. So then what you're doing is, even though it's a 3-on-4, you're putting the ball in the hands of a guy who is not an exceptional playmaker and has to make a decision from the top of the key, who also doesn't have a great handle or a ton of confidence. Gui Santos, I would say, out of those three guys, has the most confidence putting his head down and going to the basket.
Yeah.
Even he hesitates on that sometimes. In recent games, he's been playing a lot better. So when you have Jimmy Butler bringing the ball up, teams aren't going to be as quick to double team off of Steph, right? They're not going to leave a 3-on-4 with Steph running off of screens because that would be stupid, right? So Jimmy Butler is essentially operating one-on-one at the top of the key. If he takes a screen and they double, well, now it's 3-on-4 with Steph. That just creates an entirely different dynamic than 3-on-4 with like Buddy Hield, Moses Moody, and Jonathan Kuminga.
Yeah.
Right? So I think it has made a huge difference. I think it's made all the difference in the world for Steph. And I also think he's highly motivated by having him there now. Steph came out and said something because he had talked about retiring, kind of. Like, he was like, I'm getting old. I don't got much longer left. It kind of sounded like, okay, this contract extension is going to be his last. Now he's talking about playing through this contract extension. He's even said, like, if he could take a bench role with a team that was winning, he would do it at like 40, 41 years old. Yeah. So I think he is just like newly motivated. And look, I know I'm like pessimistic, and I'm not trying to be, because genuinely I think a motivated Jimmy Butler and a motivated Steph Curry is the last thing any team wants to see in the playoffs. For sure. I think even more than LeBron and Luka. Like, no, I do, because LeBron and Luka, at least there is the dynamic of like, Luka's going to hit LeBron in the corner a couple times a game, but you really got to, and trust me, that's the second pairing that I don't want to see in the playoffs. Like, but at least you can rely on the fact that you can play them individually to an extent, because Luka doesn't play great off of LeBron. LeBron plays better off of Luka when Luka's got the ball in his hands, but LeBron's not going to become an off-ball player. So they're going to alternate being on ball. And a lot of the time it's just like they either have Luka or LeBron on the court.
That's what I mean. I don't think it has to go both ways. I think when they are both on the court, LeBron's working off Luka. Yeah. And whenever one goes off the court, then they're taking control. I don't think we ever need to be in a situation. I think Luka's fine. It's kind of like with Kyrie. Like, they didn't. Obviously, Kyrie worked very well off Luka, but Luka didn't work off Kyrie. But as good as LeBron is, and you could kind of just because, how do I say it? LeBron could be a roller. LeBron could be so many different things that there's so many different schemes you can have just out of LeBron playing next to Luka. You don't have to have it the other way.
Right.
And LeBron, honestly, come playoff time, will want to reserve all his energy that he can just off defense if he can.
Of course. And I totally get that. To bring up a point that you brought up, though, and like I said, if I'm Minnesota, I don't want to play Luka in the first round because that guy sent me home last year. That being said, Luka Doncic is not in the same basketball shape he was in last year. at this time or during the playoffs. So teams are going to be able to guard Luka more one-on-one than they would be able to otherwise, and not feel the need to help if he can't get past his defender, which is then going to not eliminate his ability to pass the ball, but limit it, right? That incredible ability he has to immediately find the open man after somebody sags off a shooter is going to be reduced if teams can guard him one-on-one and not allow him to get past them.
I don't know. If I am a coach playing against the Lakers and my job, I don't have a secure job, because let's be real, a lot of NBA coaches don't have secure jobs. You don't want to be the guy who let Luka beat you one-on-one. I feel like you have to kind of you can afford that in the regular season, but you have to make business decisions. And I'd rather let guys in the corner like I was about to say Christie, like Dorian Finney-Smith, like Roy Hachimura. I'd rather let all those guys beat me. And obviously, it's not that simple, but I just let Luka go off for one game, and he's not being guarded one-on-one for the rest of the series. Maybe you do wait until he has that one game.
I get that, but like when you talk about job security, how many guys that are going to be coaching against Luka in the playoffs have to worry about their job security? Like, how many Western Conference coaches right now could you name that are like, yeah, that guy doesn't have his job secured?
I don't know. I feel like coach firings are a little I guess, yeah, no one in the West playoffs so far is really in the hot seat, because no one's really been like disappointing besides obviously like the Suns.
Yeah.
And
they're not.
And Dallas, but Dallas you can't blame Jason Kidd for Dallas being disappointing. So I guess you're right.
And so like I guess I don't take that into account when I'm thinking about that sort of thing. In the East, I might take that into account a little bit, because I feel like
a guy like Rick Carlisle you never know, he might be on the hot seat.
I don't know.
Maybe not hot seat, but
Doc Rivers is a guy I would say who's on the hot seat.
I mean, yeah, but they're also not in the playoffs. Oh wait, no, sorry, Doc Rivers. Wait, yeah, okay, he's on the Bucks. Okay,
yeah.
For some reason I thought of Nurse.
No.
Yeah,
Okay,
no.
yeah. Nurse also, but like
but yeah,
that's a whole different deal,
all...
which we might get to in a minute. But I don't know. When I look at the way Steph and Jimmy play off of each other, when I look at the way, and this is the biggest impact I've seen Jimmy have, the way Jimmy Butler influences Draymond Green, it's been totally different. I don't know if you watched the Warriors Pistons game at all.
I don't think I did.
Draymond hit the game-winning three.
Oh, I think I remember seeing
Draymond,
that, yeah.
and it was like, it was kind of open, but like, Draymond had missed his last 12 three-point attempts before that, too. Like, Jimmy has instilled a new confidence into Draymond, and I think it's because he's taken some of the weight off of Draymond's shoulders, like, in the sense that, like, there's another dog in the locker room and another dog on the court. He does the same stuff that Draymond does playmaking-wise and defensively in a lot of ways. So Draymond doesn't take on the same burden that he does. Also, I feel like Draymond will listen to Jimmy, which is a huge thing. Because for the past couple of years, even when they won that championship, Draymond wasn't listening to nobody. He was not hearing it from anybody.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like the Andre Iguodala, or maybe he was listening to Iguodala, because Iguodala was on that team that won the championship.
Right.
But that Andre Iguodala dynamic is so important. I feel like Jimmy Butler brings a different type of the same dynamic, where he really has, like, I've seen Draymond Green really have a change in mentality and a change in play style since Jimmy Butler got there. And I feel like he influences the team in that way too. But just like, we know what Jimmy Butler can do in the playoffs.
Yeah.
We know. I mean, and we know what Steph can do in the playoffs. And right now, I mean, Steph's like, what, the second leading scorer since the All-Star break?
Has he really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
He's averaging 30 since the All-Star break.
Oh, no one else has?
I don't think anyone else is really. Ant is up there. I think Kyrie was up there. I think Shea's up there. I think the list at one point.
Jokic is lower?
Mm-hmm.
And Giannis? Oh, okay.
I think the scoring, and we can look it up real quick. This was just the last graphic I saw. But yeah, I do think Steph was second. And then he had a down game, I guess, so he might have dropped.
Yeah.
But anyway, my point is just that, like,
so Shea's the most, and then
so this is points per game. Yeah, so Shea's averaging 34.3, Steph's averaging 29.5, Tatum's averaging 28.4.
Wow, Giannis is low. He's ninth.
LeBron is averaging 28.3. Paulo's averaging 28. So a lot of those guys dropped that were up here before.
Yeah.
But yeah, Steph's averaging 29.5 in 32 minutes a game with 7 assists, a steal and a half, and 4 rebounds on 51% shooting from the field, 44 from 3, and 97 from the line. So 71%
Insane.
true shooting.
71?
Yeah, 71% true shooting since the All-Star break.
Yeah, shout out Steph.
So, yeah, he's leading the NBA. Zach LaVine is shooting 70% true shooting since the All-Star break?
Yeah. How long has Sabonis been out? He's only been out like a week or two, right?
I think so, yeah.
Interesting. I mean, yeah, it's closer than you'd think. I just personally, just the names of, I understand playoff Jimmy. We know Steph has never really, failed in the playoff. It's just LeBron and Luka. I just really don't like everyone else around LeBron and Luka. But just that duo alone, I think is better.
That's true. Yeah.
But yeah, we can move on. Do you want us to do one more topic?
Yeah, let's hit on this last one.
You want to do the Paul George?
Yes, I do want to do the Paul George. Considering that we are doing a podcast, it's quite appropriate.
Yeah.
So today the 76ers announced that they will be officially seeking a trade involving Paul George in the offseason. Whether or not it ends up happening is to be seen. Sometimes these things get reported and then in the offseason they end up coming to new agreements or new terms with the player. But this is a huge 180 from what people thought Philadelphia was going to be in the offseason when they signed Paul George. I mean, people thought this team was going to be the biggest threat to Boston in the East.
I think I did for sure.
Yeah, no, I did too, because on paper it was the perfect signing. And I don't want to understate the impact of Paul George hurting his knee a couple times in the preseason and early in the season. I think that has certainly had an effect on him, but it's really just a bad look for all parties involved. And I wanted to ask you, if you're Philadelphia, where do you go from here? What are you looking for in a trade for Paul George? And what other moves are you looking to make?
I have no clue. This is a very directionless, unfortunately directionless franchise because of all the injuries of Joel Embiid. I just know that it's weird because Philly's got to be thinking, how much are we really going to get for Paul George versus the upside of, we know who Paul George is when he's on. But maybe other teams are also thinking, maybe we want Paul George because if he's really on and he's trying. The problem is when he was signing this contract, he said he wanted to go to a team where he didn't have to be the hustle guy. And it's so interesting now because no matter if he stays on this team or if he goes to a different team, I don't see a situation where he's not the hustle guy or where he gets the flexibility of not having to be the hustle guy. Yeah. He doesn't have any, I'm just trying to think of all the playoff teams that would want him because I'm assuming they're not going to trade him to the Wizards or anything, right?
That would be mean.
that would suck.
Jesus.
Let's say he goes to the Pistons. I don't know. I guess obviously Cade Cunningham has the hierarchy. I guess maybe Paul George would be that number 2 besides Tobias Harris or maybe Blake Beasley.
They already have Tobias Harris.
Yeah.
I'm not even trying to be mean, but he just kind of fills that same role already.
Yeah, so I really don't dude. That's so much money owed. He's a negative asset. Do you really want to give away picks when you have to go kind of in a younger direction already because of what's going on with Embiid and you're already so old? I don't even see. I see this report. I see what they're trying to do. I think they're gonna end up keeping him because I don't know what team would want him.
That's the problem. Is I think to get him off the books, you might have to package him with either a young player or picks.
It sucks because Jimmy was the perfect situation because you would think that because there was no leverage that they could have just done the 1-for-1 swap and been fine. Now maybe I guess Jimmy, but then again, I think they respected Jimmy enough to say hey, we're not going to trade you to Philly, the place that you left because you felt like Tobias Harris was valued over you.
Yeah.
But I don't see a situation where, especially how many bad contracts are comparable to that in the league right now?
Really bad contracts?
We're talking $50 million.
That's bad. Well, you know what Embiid's due to make in 2060 or 2066? Jesus Christ. 2026. You know what he's due to make?
What, 60?
$69 million.
So they might have the two worst contracts, and that's not obviously that's just due to injuries. That's not because Embiid's a bad player, but you might just have to eat it. You might seriously just have to be. You might have to. The GM might have to walk up to the presser and tell their fans that, hey, you know that thing that just didn't work? We're just gonna do the same thing. We're just gonna run it back because I don't see a different solution other than releasing him. But obviously, like if you just release him, he has guaranteed money, so that there's no point in releasing him because he's still probably a better player. Well, not probably. He's still a better player than like Justin Edwards, who's starting for this team.
Yeah, hey, we came full circle to Justin Edwards.
Yeah,
that's crazy. No,
they have a good amount of young talent too, where it's like I really wish they didn't have these contracts. They have Quentin Grimes, Ricky Council. Justin Edwards, obviously Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah.
Yabusele isn't, super young, but he's still, is he only like 26 or something?
Mm-hmm.
Like they have a decent young core. It's not one of the better young cores, but
no, they do.
And they're stuck with this.
Speaking of GM, if you're Daryl Morey right now, what are you thinking? Like, you just left a situation in Houston where you had to sell out your star player for picks, and now you might have to do the exact same thing again.
Well, what he's thinking is I should have just re-signed James Harden.
Yeah.
But he didn't want to re-sign James Harden because Harden was asking for $50 million.
Yeah.
But you're going to give that $50 million to Paul George now. And James Harden's an all-star. Whether you say he deserves it or not, at the end of the day, he's still a 20-10 guy. Like
he didn't, but
I mean,
it's still like up there. He's still doing way better than Paul George.
He's still a great offensive weapon versus Paul George, who's just not like.
No, and for whatever reason this year he's just not.
I mean, he lost his step, and he has had injuries.
Yeah,
and he's had to do specific medical things to make sure he can play the game. I forget what it was specifically, but he just it's a bad situation. But
yeah,
you always could have figured that Paul George was going to be more injury prone and more likely to do this than Harden. Actually, no, Harden. It's probably like the same because Harden was also a guy people projected to be hurt a lot.
Speaking of Daryl Morey, I saw something. I can't remember who it was, but some guys were on a podcast and they were talking about Daryl Morey, and they went to an Instagram post, and it was like some IG model or something like that in a swimsuit, standard stuff. Yeah. And Daryl Morey had liked the post, and like several others like it. So Daryl Morey is just on Instagram like an ass right now. And he is so checked out from the season. Like, and I don't blame him. But
every man should.
Okay.
I mean, what is there to be excited for? There's no way. I guarantee if I look at ticket prices right now, and we're talking about Philadelphia, it might be less than $10, which is a bit crazy.
It might be.
Because if I'm a Sixer fan, I don't know why I would ever purchase tickets.
Philly should have had a chip by now. Like, really looking at it, like, look at everybody they've had come through that organization, and look at every instance where they were really close. Kawhi hitting the shot in 2019, James Harden putting up 6 points in Game 7, in what was it, 2023? Like, Ben Simmons, that whole deal with him.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, a 24-year-old Joel Embiid should have done way better in that playoff series versus the Raptors. As much as we can blame the shot, it was just one shot. Like, Joel Embiid throughout the series probably only averaged it was 16, 17.
I don't complain about the shot necessarily. Like, I wanted the Raptors to win that.
Oh,
series,
no, for sure. No, not complain, but just like we can't. As much as they were one shot away, it's like they were a lot away. They could have won that series so easily. Like, that was probably the Raptors' worst. Like, just in terms of how they played, that was their worst series out of the whole playoff run.
Oh yeah,
that was the chance because they absolutely killed the Bucks. They didn't kill the Warriors. It was just kind of due to injuries and obviously I'm pretty sure Siakam played.
It was borderline. I mean, if Clay doesn't get hurt Game 6, there's a chance that the Warriors win Game 7, but they got to go back to Toronto. I think if KD is healthy, the Warriors win, right?
Yeah.
But it's like beyond that, tough to say,
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know where the Sixers go from here. I think, you might just have to ride it out, honestly, at this point, because Maxey is 25, right?
Yeah.
It's like you could try to rebuild around him, and it could certainly work. But at what point does he just say, "I'm out too"? Like, I don't want to waste 2 to 3 years of my career here.
Wait, is he he might be like 23 or 24.
I
Because
don't know.
Ant, he was in the same draft class as Ant.
I thought he was
Just
older
as
though.
young as Ant. Because I don't know if he's like 24. I know 25, 24.
He's 24. He'll turn 25 in
and that's
November.
what 6 months away, 5
Yeah.
months away. They still can rebuild. It's
Corby,
just
how many months away do you think November is?
5, right?
So
Oh, that's like 7.
We're in March.
Oh, it's like that. So that just even helps out more. He's still pretty young. It's just I I don't even want to get into this because I already think it's kind of the end of the pod. But trading Joel Embiid might also have to be the thing they do
Yeah.
if they're even able to trade him, because I don't know anyone.
Oh,
Wants
I
to
think
take
if
him.
you commit, you commit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. We discussed a lot. It's gonna be a longer pod, I think, probably like an hour 30 or something.
Probably,
maybe
yeah.
longer. If you guys enjoyed, like, comment, subscribe, and yeah, peace out.